What's the best defensive support? So what's the best healer in Guild Wars 2 right now after the Visions of Eternity expansion released with 9 new elite specs? This is for PvE group play specifically, and I can tell you the new elite specs have some crazy good support and increase the level, the bar that is a standard for healer for sure. So in this video, I will give you my somewhat objective take on what the current meta is in terms of healing and provide you with the insight that you can choose the class that you like or just debate with me if that's the case. If you are a tier list enjoyer, be sure to check out my tier list videos, more upcoming as well in the future. But now let's jump straight into the meta and start with a big disclaimer here. This is of course trying to be objective, but I always have some kind of bias towards specific things that I prefer. And I will always try to mention that, but you cannot be in a tier list perfectly objective in my opinion. So I will try, but bear with me here. And I will also say here, all of the builds that I mentioned here, I tried as well. And if I have not a build guide out yet, I will put out one very soon. So stay tuned for that as well. But with that much said, let's start with the tiers. We have impossible tier because in Guild Wars 2 PvE, you have to be a healer that also provides either permanent alacrity or permanent quickness to their subgroup. And some classes, quite a lot of them actually, especially core classes, cannot do that, so they are not able to fill the role. Then we have Troll tier, of course, makes sense. Troll tier, some classes are just being able to be played as that, but that is not enough because they just don't provide any value. We will get to those very soon. And then you have, of course, B, A, S, and S tier. And I have to say, because healing nowadays, the standard for healers are so high, I have to make tiers that are higher than S tier because they are so good. Even better than normal healers with double S tier and triple S tier. Let's start with the impossible tier. In impossible tier, all the core classes, Virtuoso, Reaper, Dragon Hunter, Daredevil, Weaver, Spellbreaker, Holosmith, Soul Beast, and the new one, Conduit. That is surprising for me. I want to mention that here. All the others are just how they are since beginning of time almost. But Conduit, in my opinion, had the potential to be a healer, but without providing alacrity or quickness in their kit, it's impossible to be played. So I think if they would give alacrity or quickness to Centaur Stanson specifically for Conduit only, I think this would be a really good healer or a somewhat good healer, but it's now impossible, so that's why it is in the impossible tier. With that much said, let's go to the next Revenant spec. Let's start with Revenant. Oh yes, because Revenant, in my opinion, all the Revenant elite specs could be played except Conduit as a healer, but I think they are probably the weakest one of all elite specs out there. So let's start with Renegade. Yes, Renegade can be played as a healer. It's not Troll tier, it definitely works, but for me, B tier, because it has the potential to be a healer, it has the potential to provide stability, provide some reflect, stuff like that, or deflect rather, and a lot of it. But I think it is just outclassed by a lot of other healers, and it's very, very niche. It's very, very niche. And that's why I think it's like not the highest healing output, the boon access is not that easy to get, and you are very locked into some specific legends, and if you choose them, you cannot go for the other ones, so it's a little bit like, it's not as flexible. That's the core problem of Revenant, that's why it's in B tier, but it can be played. Then we have Heal Herald. Heal Herald is better than Heal Renegade in my opinion, more healing output, very good passive healing output, very good passive boon output, and you can upkeep, for example, a lot of protective bubbles. That is good against projectiles. For example, on Greer, it can be really good. So I think because of that, it has to be A tier. But to be honest, it's at the lower end of A tier. It's only in A tier because it has the very specific niche where it's good. I think it is not a very good healer in most situations. It's only good in some specific niches. So maybe you could make an argument for putting it in some kind of new tier, A-, but I personally think it's somewhat niche. Yeah. So A tier, S tier healers are more generally good, I would say. Then we have Vindicator. I think Vindicator is a healer that is nowadays possible to be played. It's fun healer. It has some things going for it. It's like, I would say, unique in terms of how it applies its alacrity and stuff like that. But I personally think it's somewhat in B tier as well. I think if it would get some buffs to it, yeah, I guess. But I think it's like the gimmick of a scepter, that you're forced to use scepter and the attacks of it is a little bit weird. And this is one of the healers that has the lowest amount of damage output. Yes, of course, a healer doesn't have to have damage, but this does almost 0 damage. It's surprising how little damage it does because you're always targeting your allies. So that's one of the things, but of course also it's a little bit gimmicky to play. I don't know. I think the boon uptime is also not that great. I think Heal Herald probably the best choice, but all of them quite close and not deserving S tier anywhere close to it, I would say. And that much said, let's go to the next heavy armor class, which is Warrior. Warrior, let's start with Bladezone. Bladezone, a lot of people would put heal Bladezone in troll tier. It's possible to play Alacrity, heal Bladezone, and I think it's surprisingly good. People don't expect it to be that good. I think it's low B tier because it's surprising how much core utilities you have. You have the banners, you have the very nice healing from tactics, and that works in Bladezone too. So I think Bladezone is a B tier, low B tier, but it is there. You can play it. It's not what I would recommend in most groups because there are way more better healers out there, but it is possible. Then we have Heal Paragon. Heal Paragon is by far the best choice that you have for healer right now. For a Warrior, I would say Heal Paragon for me, easy S tier, maybe even double S tier. We will have to see. For now, let's put it in S tier. Let's put it in double S tier because we will have other specs that are somewhat close to it. The problem with Heal Paragon is that it needs a target, but that's the only big problem. You also struggle a bit with reflex, but everything else you can cover. You have crazy boon output, crazy healing output. It's fun to play, it's fast paced, it's very reactive if you want it to be. So I think double S tier for now. We will have to see if we have to adjust it later. With that much said, let's go to the next contender, which would be Berserker. Berserker is a spec that is feeling very close to Paragon with a bit more troubles keeping up stuff. For example, you have not access to the elite banner or the elite invulnerability from Paragon, and therefore it cannot be an double S tier, but I would say it's better than Heal Herald. Yes, I think the boon output is better, the stability access is very great, and it's very like fluid to play and somewhat easy to perform, like 11 boons permanently. I mean, come on, that's really good while also having good healing. Has to be S tier for me. That's like S for me is the new standard. Everything above S tier is just better, provides a lot of crazy boons and healing, whereas everything below is either niche or just a little bit like weak. That's why I would say S tier for crazy good healer, but there are even crazier healers out there. I want to mention here, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more tier lists, if you are tier list enjoyer, such as myself, be sure to subscribe for more tier lists coming up very, very soon as well. But now let's talk about Guardian. Oh yes, Guardian. Guardian, probably one of the best all-around support specs in the game. We have actually Alacrity Heal Willbender. It's possible to be played. I think it's a little bit gimmicky because it has forced movement in there, but the core Guardian utilities carry it, and I think it's deserving a spot in A tier, maybe higher in S tier depending who you ask, but I think it's a little bit gimmicky and the healing output is a little bit lower than other healers, so I think it's for me an A tier spec, but I think it is somewhat underrated. So give it a try, have a build guide about it, especially if you're looking for a low intensity healer. I think this one is very, very good for that, but I think it's not deserving a spot in S tier. Next up, we have Luminary. Luminary is a new one. Yes, Luminary is very, very good. It provides crazy amount of healing, crazy amount of boon output, very easy to get it. It's somewhat spammy, but it's very easy to get all the boons up. I would say for me, easy double S tier. However, it struggles a bit with upkeeping, for example, Vigor, if you don't have Longbow, and you have to, your weapon choices are very like deciding. You can go for Axe Shield, you can go for Longbow, you can go for Hammer, you can go for Staff, obviously you have to go for Staff, I guess. This is somewhat like limiting it a bit, and you have crazy amounts of like stability access as well. So I think that's why it's deserving a spot in double S tier. But I think it's not as broken as some other specs in here because it is somewhat limited by what it can provide, because you are very limited in the weapon choices and the utility choices in terms of like you want to bring like 10 different ones, but you cannot. And that means that you are somewhat limiting yourself. Either you bring CC or you bring stability, or you bring Vigor, then you don't provide as easy uptime of CC or projectile destruction. So there is a little bit of, you can min-max, but you cannot upkeep that always permanently. That's why double S tier, very, very good spec. But yeah, now let's talk to Firebrand. Heal Firebrand. I think Heal Firebrand has to be like one of the hardest healers in the game because you have to position correctly, you have to know all your tomes to actually understand how they work, and a lot of skills to learn. I think it's very fun if you can perform on it, if you know everything about it, but it's not the easiest to play. And it's also sometimes, I have to say, the geometry that you have to understand, that sometimes you cannot position in a way that everyone in your party will have permanent quickness because some of your party members are just like trolling and positioning incorrectly. If you have a circle around you where you provide quickness, you can almost always guarantee that your party that is close enough to you will get quickness, for example. But if you are in a specific scenario where party members are just positioning behind you, next to you on the left, next to you on the right, it's impossible to get a very nice triangle where you can position yourself behind them to provide the quickness. It's really weird, but that's how it is. And I think that's why Heal Firebrand, flexible, yes, very good in terms of like boon output, utility, but I think the healing output is lower than some other builds, and that's why it's in double S tier. I think it is lower healing output than Heal Luminary, for example, but more utility baseline. That's why it's in double S tier, especially in Fractals, very, very good build. So we are done with the heavy armor classes. I would say let's move to the medium armor classes. Oh boy, the medium armor classes have some really big surprises in there. Let's start with Engineer. Engineer, I would say Heal Scrapper is surprisingly underrated. I think Heal Scrapper is a build that people underestimate how much the healing output is, how much the super speed is very unique. No other healer can provide that much healing and super speed at the same time while also having boon access. I think the stability is a little bit sparse, but it's there. So I think for me, S tier. Yes, Scrapper in S tier as a healer. It's surprisingly underrated, very fun to play, very strong, but not deserving a spot in higher tiers because it's just a little bit lower in terms of raw efficiency of the output. But if you need super speed, that's the way to do it. Then we have Heal Mechanist. People will hate me for that, but I think Heal Mechanist is like A tier, maybe even lower, to be honest. I think Heal Mechanist could be, to be honest, I think like Heal Mechanist is B tier. Heal Mechanist is a spec that got nerfed so many times and is now just a decent healer with a very clunky playstyle for me. Yes, I know I might be a bit biased because I'm not the biggest mech enjoyer, but having a golem that you have to like train to always be at the same position where you want it to be can be really annoying, especially in chaotic fights, because the alacrity is not around you, it's around the mech, and that is really annoying. So I think for me, low A tier, high B tier, let's leave it in B tier for now to make my statement, but in general, I think this is an overestimated healer. People that play that typically don't know how much healing you can do on other healers, and of course also how easy it is to write runes that are not as gimmicky to get as with Mechanist. So for me, B tier. And then we have Heal Amalgam. Oh boy. This will be a hot take as well. I tried it, build guide coming up over it soon, but Heal Alacrity Amalgam, I think it's an A tier build. Oh yes, I think Heal Alacrity Amalgam, I think it's better than Heal Mechanist. And they are competing in the same spot, they are both Alacrity healers. I think Heal Alacrity Amalgam has surprising amount of boon output, good healing, and it's very fun to play. I think it's a decent build. It's not an S tier build for sure, but I think it's definitely deserving a spot in A tier. Now we are done with Mechanist, let's talk about Ranger. Ranger is a spec that can provide no boons with Soul Beast and has one of the best boon outputting specs in the game with Druid. Druid is a spec that is, since it came out, very good as a healer. Is it now still one of the best healers out there? It depends on the content you're doing. If you're doing Fractals, for example, I would put it in A tier. If you're doing open world, I would put it in A tier. But as soon as you go into strike missions and specifically raids, I have to be honest, it has to be the highest tier, triple S tier. I think so. Why is that? Because Druid has the flexibility of having like 5 or 6 weapon sets that you can use, like a longbow to knock back stuff, like having the ability to be able to heal 10 people if you're the solo healer and provide alacrity to them. Stuff like that is very unique and very, very strong. Is it a reason to put it higher than double S tier? I would say it depends on the content. If we are looking only raids and strike missions and stuff like that, it has to be the highest tier. But if you're talking about all the game modes, I think it falls off. Maybe in S tier only, because in Fractals and in small groups, it's just not as good. It doesn't have as much stability access as other healers. Frequent stability, that is. And I would say, because of that, maybe Druid double S tier for now. Let's leave it like that. But in some situations, triple S tier for sure deserved as well. Depends a bit on the situation, but that goes, I would guess, for all of the healers here, because some of the healers struggle with some things, whereas in other things they shine. So it's always dependent on the content that you're playing it in. Keep that in mind. With that much said, let's talk about Heal Untamed. It's possible, has very high healing output, surprisingly good boon output as well, but, and that's the important part here, has 0 access to stability, and with that it has to go into B tier. It's maybe even the troll tier nowadays to play a support that doesn't provide stability. To be honest, I might actually have to do that, because having a healer that doesn't provide stability is like a downfall for almost every single encounter, because you can cheese so many mechanics with stability. and you don't have that, that means that some of the people in your group just don't know what to do because they will get like feared on Slothor or something. They don't know what to do. And that means that this is a spec that is surprisingly bad. If they would give it stability, it would go up like at least 2 tiers, I would say, but it is not having stability, so that's why it's in troll tier. I'm really sorry for the Untamed mains, but that's just how it is. Let's go to the last medium armor class, which is Thief. Thief is very interesting. Thief has one of the best with Spectre. Spectre is one of the best supports right now. It's very underrated, very good access to everything. Boons, healing, barrier, like utility with teleports and all that good stuff. Even for the party members, I would say double S tier for sure. Really, really good. Is it triple S tier? Not yet, I would say. It struggles with some things. So it depends on the encounter. You have really good utility in most situations, but it's not as broken as we will see another spec that we will put into triple S tier. The total opposite to Spectre is Deadeye. Deadeye is a spec that could theoretically be played as a quickness healer. You could play it, but is it working? No. I would say it's troll tier if you see ever a heal Deadeye that is just like trolling. It's using some Shadow Arts traits probably to heal, but it's not even close to getting enough healing. I think it's a troll tier pick. You should not play that. It's way lower than Untamed. Keep that in mind as well. It's just Untamed doesn't provide stability, and like this is just not good. Don't play those. Then we have Heal Antiquary. I have to be honest, Heal Antiquary on paper could work. Yeah, it could work. You have to play like a healer with like Alacrity access, which is on your offensive artifact, so you have to use those while providing like no boons. So it's like really, it's not designed like that. They really wanted to have a DPS Alacrity Antiquary, not a healer. So for me, troll tier as well. You cannot play that. It's possible theoretically, but everyone will hate you if you do it. So easy troll tier as well. So you can say Thief, if you want to play a support, play Spectre. Everything else doesn't work. And now let's move to the light armor classes. Light armor classes, probably one of the best supports in the entire game. Let's start with Necromancer. Heal Harbinger, I would say, is a very underrated healer. I would say for me, Heal Harbinger is for me A tier. Maybe that's not fair, to be honest. Maybe Heal Harbinger could be S tier even, because it's very easy to upkeep some boons. It is surprisingly good in healing output with the transfusion and stuff. I don't know, the highest of A tier for sure, maybe S tier, depending on who you asked. It's surprisingly good with the transfusion change. Then we have Heal Scourge. I think Heal Scourge, ever since it was reworked with transfusion, is a little bit like less unique. It doesn't have any teleports for downstate anymore. It has very good barrier output, very good cleanse output. I would say Heal Scourge, surprisingly good still, but can it compete with double S tier specs? I don't know, it depends on the content that you're doing. On some occasions, it's really good, but I think in a lot of situations, you would rather have like a Heal Luminary or Heal Druid than you would have a Scourge. I think it's for me high S tier, but maybe double S tier for some people. It heavily depends on the content that you're doing. I really think so. I think the raw healing numbers on Heal Scourge are lower than a lot of the double S tier healers, and I think that's a problem in some situations, but the barrier output is amazing. This utility can be good. I think it's really on the edge of like double S tier to S tier. I think it depends. I would put it in S tier for now because we have Heal Ritualist. Heal Ritualist for me is a spec that is very, very good. It has very good tankiness, way more tankiness than any other Necromancer spec, and very good healing output, very good boon output, is easy to play, is surprisingly mobile as well. It just has almost everything in the kit. I think it's deserving a spot in the double S tier, but at the lower end. Why is that? Because, for example, Reflex can be a struggle, and in general, it's not as flexible in utility slots as other healers. So I think maybe because of that, we have to put it in S tier as well. Maybe because it's not as flexible as others. But it has very good output of boons and healing. So let's leave it now highest S tier. Just noticed I also forgot one Ranger spec. So let's talk about Galeshot. I don't know why I forgot it for Ranger. But Heal Galeshot, very short answer, it's troll tier. You could play it, it provides quickness, yes. But healing with it is almost impossible, so troll tier, don't play that. But now let's talk about Elementalist. So Elementalist has Heal Catalyst. Oh boy, this is a rather tough one to actually rate. Why is that? Because the healing output is good. The boon output is very good, and the utility it provides is quite mediocre, I would say. But it has one thing that a lot of other healers, I would say almost all other healers except Druid, do not have, which is ranged providing of their boons and range healing. Yes, a lot of healers in Guild Wars 2 provide the healing in their melee range, whereas Heal Catalyst provides quickness and heals from long range, 900 range. That is very, very good. And in some fights, a very, very good plus point and advantage for a lot of situations. But I think this does not deserve to be a spot that is like in, I would say, low S tier, maybe high A tier, depending on what kind of encounter you're playing. I think it's somewhat close with Heal Harbinger, that it's higher than those three, but it's not as, I would say, let's say, put it low S tier. To Heal Harbinger, those two are very, very close together in terms of like utility and stuff. I would say because of utility skills that are quite weak for Catalyst, I would say A tier, but if you need some ranged healing, this can be a really, really big go-to option. Let's talk about Tempest next. Tempest is a healer that got buffed so many times. Now it has 2 traits that provide alacrity if you want to choose one of them, but I think one of them is clearly made for a healer, and it's so good now. I would say Heal Tempest is very underrated in how easy it is to play. However, Heal Tempest has one big problem in my opinion, that it is a little bit like gimmicky to get some of the utility out of it. What do I mean by that? For example, stability providing and stuff like that is not as reactive as it is on other builds. For me, that's why Tempest is an S tier build. It's not a double S tier build because it lacks some of the crazy utility and ease of access, ease to play than the double S tier builds. And it's not as flexible in terms of what it can provide as, for example, a Druid with the weapon slots and stuff like that. So I would say Tempest, very good healer, but not double S tier for me. And then we have Evoker. Oh yes, you can play a heal Evoker. You can play a water-locked Evoker that works. I would not recommend it. It's just providing alacrity, regen, and some other boons, but not crazy uptime of it, and doesn't provide stability at all, or almost not at all. So I think heal Evoker, if you lock yourself, quite bad. If you play around with it and play some kind of like every element, swap around, heal alacrity Evoker with all elements and having fun and playing according to the rotation, I think it's a decent build. I think it's deserving a spot in low A tier, but it's not as good as Heal Catalyst and Heal Harbinger. So I think there is a rather clear split. I think those two would be A+, and the other 4 here would be A, I would guess. And now let's move to the last class, which is Mesmer. Mesmer is, for me, especially with Mirage, it got hit so many times. Like, Mesmer gets nerfed. It's probably the only support that got nerfed over the last year, and Mirage got hit the hardest. It's like, it was viable, it was very fun to play, but now with the Dune Cloak change, and especially with the Bountiful Disillusionment change, it's like almost unplayable. I have to be honest. It's like B tier healer for me. Maybe in some situations it could even be trolled here. I'm not joking. The alacrity providing, the boon providing is good, but the stability access is so low, and it's just quite gimmicky to play. I would say B tier, but it was like, it really, like for a couple of weeks, it was really good, but then they nerfed it. It really fell quite a bit. I'm really sad about that, but that's just how it goes. B tier for Heal Mirage. Then we have Heal Chronomancer. Heal Chronomancer, you might hate me for that, but Heal Chronomancer might be the only triple S tier. We will have to see if Troubadour can rival that. But Heal Chronomancer, why is it higher than the others here in double S tier? Because it has the flexibility. It can provide like insane amount of CC with double more, with all the utility slots being into CC. You can go for permanent stability with it, which a lot of other specs, even in double S tier, cannot provide that easily. Or you can go for crazy amounts of healing if you needed to. It's just very flexible, as well with the weapon choices. You have pulls, you have H's, you have blocks, you have just everything in the kit, and you can mix and match. And that's the important part. You can mix and match. Whereas others struggle a bit with mix and matching. For example, Luminary, it can provide the same stuff that, for example, Heal Chronomancer can, with some exceptions, but you can provide almost all of it. But Chronomancer can say, I provide H's while I provide enough reflects and stability and CC. And then you have Luminary being a little bit in trouble because it cannot provide all of that at the same time. Chronomancer can do that. So I think the split between triple S and double S tier is quite small. There is not a big gap anymore, but I think Chronomancer is still deserving a spot in a little bit higher because of its flexibility and how good it is with raw numbers. And don't forget, this is not the best healer in raw healing output. I think Paragon, Luminary, those two probably have more healing output, raw healing output, than Chronomancer does. But I think it's not enough to actually move them up or move Chronomancer down, because I think oftentimes you don't need raw healing numbers, you need utility to actually not get damage in the first place. That's why Chronomancer is so good. And while we're already talking about some specific healing numbers and stuff, I think Troubadour is a spec that is crazy in the healing numbers. Really good barrier uptime, in the distortion share. I think it can rival Chronomancer in terms of raw numbers and what it can provide, because it gets the same flexibility as a Chronomancer. Yes, you can have stability mantra, you can have a CC skill, you can have the distortion on elite. You have so much flexibility, but Chronomancer is still for me better than Troubadour. Yes, I think Troubadour double S tier, whereas Chronomancer is triple S tier, because Troubadour cannot provide as much CC, it cannot provide as much H's, it cannot provide as much reflects as, for example, Chronomancer, because Chronomancer gets the F5 skill. People underestimate how strong that skill is, because it amplifies every single attack that you have on your kit to just double cast it, with the exception of Mimic. But everything can be double cast, and that means that you can just say, okay, I will now double cast my Moor, or I will double cast my Reflect, or I will double cast my H's. And the important part is, you can decide that in the fight. So that means if a fight changes the direction, maybe you notice that your group lacks CC, you can use your double Moor. Any other spec cannot do that. They decide before the fight what is necessary. So that is something that you have to understand. That's why Troubadour is a little bit lower, because you cannot decide stuff during the fight. The flexibility is before the fight, not in the fight. And that's why Chronomancer shines a bit more for me, but I think the gap between triple S to S is quite low. It really is. I just wanted to mention here at the end that B tier builds are even viable. Just Troll tier and Impossible is, I would say, not playable, but even B tier builds are playable. I would say A tier builds are normal. S tier builds are the standard. That is, if you have those builds in your group, you will probably not fail with it. And if you want to carry really hard, go for the really high triple S or double S tier builds. But don't forget, this is just my opinion. Let me know your takes on this, if you agree with me, if you disagree. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like. If you want to see more tier lists like that one, be sure to subscribe. Thanks to my supporters that help me keep the lights on. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.